Everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. Thursday Night Football, Week 16. Weather all over the place. I look like a Christmas lights dangling all over it. It's tremendous. Happy holidays, everybody. Hope everybody is staying safe. They're calling it the Siberian Express weather movement. The pattern, Siberian Express, not good. Everything pretty much from Chicago east. Oh, look at the snow. The snow's even coming in here, folks. Oh my gosh. From Chicago east, weather's going to be a factor in likely a big way. Games on Thursday tonight, of course, Saturday, Sunday, all over. So we'll get you ready. Fantasy football. We're going to give away some Domino's pizza as well. Okay. Hey, I'm in a generous mood, feeling good. Tell you how to win some Domino's pizza in a few minutes. My guy Johnny Avello from Las Vegas, Nevada, DraftKings Sportsbook Director, is going to be joining us in a few minutes to give us some of the trends we're seeing. And really, what does this weather have to do? I'm feeling a lot of unders this week. We'll talk to Johnny about that, but get you ready for Week 16. Give you my perfect DraftKings DFS lineup for Thursday Night Football and get into some of the start-sits options for what is going to be a busy week around the National Football League. Make sure you give me a follow on Twitter at AndyMC81, at Firedup Net, on Instagram as well, at AndyMCSports. How you can win some Domino's pizza. Very easy. All you do, you go over to AndyMC81 on Twitter, look for the tweet where I talk about you'll see the Domino's pizza. You retweet it, and I want to know your fantasy football player present this year. What was the best result? What was a gift that you got? Was it value on when you drafted a certain player? Was it somebody blew up or popped when you really needed them to? What was that present that you got from fantasy football this year? So I want to hear about that. If you reply with it, retweet that tweet, you'll be entered to win some delicious Domino's pizza. With all the weather coming, you could probably use it. Get some delivery out there. Send somebody else out to go get the food. So at AndyMC81, at Firedup Net, check that out. Now some news. Gardner Minshew Mania, baby. It's back. It's back. I got all the Hulkster stuff back there. The Hulkamania. No, Minshew Mania with the stash, the jorts. Oh, look, more festivities. I love it. The bandanas, everything. Gardner Minshew officially will start. Jalen Hurts will sit. Disappointing because I really wanted to see that showdown, that NFC East showdown between Hurts and Dak, Eagles, Cowboys. But he's got to, what's your present? There you go. What's your fantasy football present this year? I really wanted to see that matchup. We're not going to get it. But we do have some intrigue with Gardner Minshew coming in for that Eagles-Cowboys game. And what really stands out to me is, one, okay, you're not replacing Jalen Hurts at quarterback for your fantasy team in your fantasy playoffs. You can get your questions into, you got fantasy football questions for your playoffs, for DFS contests. Hit me up on Twitter at AndyMC81, Instagram at AndyMCSports. Use hashtag AskAndy so I can find it. So we're not replacing Jalen Hurts, so what do we do? Well, Gardner Minshew, I think, still could have some fantasy value in a spot start. Remember, you are getting Dallas Goedert back. That's big time for that Eagles offense. Minshew has shown throughout his career he can be fantasy relevant. He is fearless. That Dallas defense is really good, though. I think the biggest beneficiary of this are the Eagles running backs, namely Miles Sanders. Because with Hurts, we saw him run in 3 touchdowns last week, right? Minshew's mobile, but he's not going to do that. So you can have a more effective running game. And we've seen the running game in spots be effective, be fantasy football relevant. Miles Sanders now has a chance to really step up into that role. Kenneth Gainwell, secondary Boston Scott, unless he gets some goal line carry, not going to do it for you. But Miles Sanders, if you are, because I get questions each week about Miles Sanders, and he's sort of a RB2 bubble guy with all the possibilities for Jalen Hurts to run. This week, I think you can start him confidently. I think you can get Miles Sanders. He gets top 12 potential. He really does. He's got top 12 potential this week. So Miles Sanders, biggest beneficiary, secondary Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell is a bit more of a flex, what if possible. I'd feel more comfortable if you were playing him in your DFS contest, DraftKings contest, whatever, as a contrarian play. You should get some more reps, but this should be Miles Sanders' backfield. Again, Dallas Goedert back. I don't love playing him, but we know, folks, We know how thin the tight end group is. We know how barren it is, how empty the cupboards are when it comes to fantasy tight ends. You might not have a choice. I'll tell you this, though. A guy, Evan Ingram, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This guy's had a disappointing fantasy career overall and has been with the Giants, never really fulfilled expectations. For this Thursday night game, if you want to get yourself some Evan Ingram, depending on what league you're in, maybe he's available, maybe he's not. Yeah, it shows that he's available 25 to 30% of most leagues, depending. Last 3 weeks, he's gotten you into the teens for fantasy points. This is his last 3 weeks for Evan Ingram, tight end for the Jags. 14 fantasy points against Detroit. 42.2 against the Tennessee Titans. And 14.2 against the Dallas Cowboys. So we see that type of success. And what really stands out to me is this past week where he was able to get into those teams, he didn't have a touchdown. So you weren't relying on that touchdown. It was target share. It was 10 targets. It was 8 receptions. Trevor Lawrence was balling out. Zay Jones stud. I'll talk more about him later on. But you had him in 3 touchdowns in this past 3 games, but none the last week. And he still produced that. So Evan Ingram, very strong play. I would put Evan Ingram right up there as a top fantasy play for Thursday night. The weather looks like where, unlike in other spots around the northern states, like I said, from Chicago, elsewhere, it looks like if you are playing Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be messy. Looks pretty good. 34 Fahrenheit, clear, and on the weather thing, you see a little moon and a little cloud. That's pretty good. Doesn't look like any big gusting winds or anything like that, so should be okay. Always a bit of the risk when it comes to these warm weather. It's not like Jacksonville is, comfortable playing in super cold conditions, but it should be, and it looks like it should be fine. It should be doable for December weather. So you should feel pretty confident looking at that direction. Get to some of your gifts, your presents, your fantasy football player present results. So the Andy Claus can give you, got my festive red, can give you some Domino's pizza. Chance to enter. Make sure you're following on Twitter at AndyMC81. Retweet. Send me, what's your fantasy football gift this year? What's your fantasy football gift? I'm going to get to one right now. At NBello Toronto says Isaiah McKenzie at Buffalo Bills. Okay. Isaiah McKenzie, a guy who, while Gabe Davis was really highly drafted, oversold. He had that, we all remember that epic 4-touchdown playoff game. But Isaiah McKenzie, where you probably got him in the draft, is a good value. Now, I'm just looking at his season so far. You had week 3, 4, couple weeks pop, 19er, and then he's been quiet the last 3 weeks. So we'll get more fantasy football. But from Las Vegas, my guy, Johnny Avello. I see him on the screen right there. Johnny, how are you?
Dude, doing well, Andy. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, happy holidays, sir. Great to have you on. Hope everything's good there in Vegas. I'm sure a bit warmer than what most of the North is expecting this weekend, right?
Yeah, it cooled down a little bit. It was in the high 40s, but over the next 5 or 6 days, we're going to be in the mid 60s. I'm very happy about that.
Oh, man, that hurts, Johnny. That hurts.
Sorry.
That's not great from where I am and where a lot of these teams are. And this is the time of year when we're looking at what wagers to place, what to keep in mind when you're throwing some bucks down on the NFL. Johnny, this is the time of year where you really have to put on your meteorologist hat on and pay close attention to the weather, right?
Definitely. And it all starts tonight with a game in New York where we know it's going to be cold. It's the weather over the next 3 to 5 days back there is going to be, there's wind in some spots. There's wind chill factor taking it down, minus 20s. So, this is a time where you got to kind of do a little bit of handicapping on the teams, how they play in this type of weather, and certainly look for wind, Andy. Wind is the number one factor that affects a game. If you get wind 10, 15 miles an hour, that's certainly going to slow down the scoring.
Yeah, that's a great point. Not necessarily just the temperature, but the wind. Very important there. One game for the Browns versus the Saints in Cleveland. Johnny, they're saying in that stadium, I've been in many times, right down off the shores of Lake Erie. They're expecting winds around 20, 25 miles an hour, but with gusts up to 50. Like, you're not throwing the football on that, and you're probably not kicking it either.
Yeah, that totals dropped from the opener of 38 down to 32.
Mm-hmm.
And some people look at the 32 and say, that's so low, I got to bet that over. But how are the teams going to move the football? Maybe it's best to wait and jump on the end game in that, see how it goes early.
Yeah, the end game is interesting to see. I would say if I'm looking at that, Johnny, the 32.5, I still like the under. Browns won last week in cold, nowhere near what the weather's supposed to be like. But last weekend against Baltimore in Cleveland, it was cold, bit of a wind, flurries, and they won 13-3. It's not like the Saints are really lighting it up this year. You have Andy Dalton, Michael Thomas is out again. And really, I hope at least from an entertainment standpoint, maybe we see some creativity, right? You get Taysom Hill can always be a bit of a wild card there.
Saints aren't a big scoring team either. They won. I think they beat the Raiders. I think it was 13-0 or something. So, they're a low scoring team also. They don't take a lot of chances. Put the ball in Hill's hands. That helps. Maybe you get a breakaway. But for the most part, that's not a team I see scoring a lot of points either.
No, me neither. I'm slamming the under on that 32.5. Now, this is what is interesting to me when you look at the lines here. We talk, again, cold weather. Bears hosting the Bills in Chicago. You have to track, and like you said, in-game is always a good option as well, but you have to track to see what things are going to be like. Looks like it should be cold, but then I see, the little icon might be a bit sunny. That's something to track. If the weather's poor, where are you at when you see lines like, the Bills up by 8, 8.5, 9.5 on some books earlier in the week? When it could be a cold weather game, is that something you shy away from that big of a difference, or does it matter?
Well, the bettors, when we opened this game 10, it was sitting at 10 early, and then 9.5, 9. It's dropped all the way down to 8.5. Might even go lower. The bettors are saying that I'm going to take anything over a touchdown in a game where the weather's going to be cold. If they win, maybe they win by a score only. And the Bills, even though a cold weather team, if there's wind, there's no such thing as a win team. There just doesn't happen. And that's what they're expecting, some really bad weather up there. Last night I saw wind chills of minus 25, 30. So that's one of those spots in the country, could be the coldest overall. And the bettors are just taking the points, thinking that that the Bills, even if they win this game, it won't be by much.
Yeah, you could get into running, field goals, whatever it might be, and maybe even not, because again, if you're kicking, you don't want to be tossing the ball up in the air like that. Shows, I think, 14 before the wind chill. Oh, that sounds nasty. Oh, boy. That sounds really bad. Here's an interesting game, and news coming out. Looks like Ryan Tannehill done for the year, hosting the Texans. And while at first glance we think of the Texans as being terrible, and they are, the last 2 weeks, Johnny, we've seen them be at least a tough out. Like the last 2 weeks, because Dallas was like a 17-point favorite. Then the other week, I think the Texans covered as well. Where are you at just with as bad teams are this time of year? And let's talk Texans for a moment, because again, they're not good. There's nothing that really jumps out to you, but they've made some people some money the last 2 weeks, at least covering the spread.
Yeah, they're not awful. They're one win, but they're potentially better than being that on a week-to-week basis, and they've showed that. Tennessee is just kind of in a funk right now. Otherwise, this line would be, if you went back for a month ago, 6 weeks ago, and looked at this game, Texans are probably at least a touchdown in this one, but things are just not working right now for the Titans, and they just need to, put it together, still have a chance to make the playoffs and maybe turn it around. But it all starts in this game right here. Otherwise, lose this game, this team is telling you that, we just don't have it this year. So the line's 3. It's probably going to more than 3 as far as the juice is concerned, because we're at 3 minus 15. I could see 3 minus 20. I could even see this thing going to 3.5 by game time. But it's a dangerous team to bet on right now, Tennessee, because they're just not performing well.
No, they're not. And yeah, even if they get into the playoffs, they're screaming a one and done with their current scenario. And here's something else we have to consider. Like I said, Ryan Tannehill looks to be done for the year with that ankle. Malik Willis is in. They played the Texans back in week 8. In the 3 games he played, the Titans did not score more than 17 points. So they found ways to win. They won 2, lost 1, but didn't score more than 17. Weather won't be in it, or shouldn't be too much of an issue down there. But there again sits that 35.5 point total. And I'm wondering, before people start realizing that Tannehill might be done, is that maybe an underplay? Because the Texans don't put up many points either.
Yeah, Willis has got a long way to go in the league. He played for Liberty. He was a pretty good quarterback there, put up a lot of points, but still made a lot of errors too. So this is a league about learning for a lot. Learning, it takes a couple of years for some, they just jump right in and get it. He's not one of those type of guys, but he is a runner, and that certainly helps in the NFL these days. I think you need to be a runner and a passer both. If you're one or the other, that doesn't work. Certainly if you're a passer only, that doesn't work. So you got to have the talents on both sides. He's okay. He's an okay guy to have out there, but Tannehill's much better in that Tannehill has been in the league in a while with a lot more experience. So I think Tennessee would be happy to win this game by a point, knowing that we need to get on the right track.
Yeah, pretty much. Is there any game that jumps out to you as far as, like, let's say money line or just odds that really kind of slam out as like, wow, like I'm looking at we were talking earlier with the news of Gardner Minshew coming in for Jalen Hurts. Eagles to straight up win on the DraftKings Sportsbook for the money line, plus 230. Cowboys almost got surprised by the Texans. I think the Cowboys are playing great. But Minshew's proven to be confident. Like, I don't know, Johnny. I'm looking plus 230. You're getting a piece like Dallas Goedert back. You still have a solid running game. Their defense is good. Divisional game is plus 230. Is that something you like? What's the action sort of been on that Eagles Cowboys since the news of Gardner Minshew popping in?
Yeah, there's going to be money on the Eagles money line, but this is where I would beware. Is that the Dallas rushing defense is not very good. They're near the bottom of the league. And when you've got a guy like Hurts playing, he's very hard to contain. He has major problems for a team like the Cowboys. Minshew is not that type of player. I mean, Minshew has started maybe 20 games in the NFL. And if you look, he doesn't have a lot of rushing yards. So that's not his game. Will he run for, 2 yards if needed? Yes. But he's not going to be an offensive weapon with his legs. So he's going to have to do it in the air. And I'm not so sure that this is the spot that, you'd want this Eagle team. Now, they may keep it close. If you were going to bet the Eagles in this game, you might consider taking the 6 points. But this is a big game for the Cowboys. In my opinion, this is a meaningless game for the Eagles. They're going to win the division. They're still going to probably be the number 1 seed when it's all said and done because, Minnesota's certainly not playing all that well. They're going to have their hands full with the Giants this week. So, and that's the reason Hurts isn't playing. Hurts probably could have went. It wouldn't have been a good idea because those shoulder injuries could, flare up again. So even if it was minor, that he could go, but why not give him a week off? Because there's bigger fish to fry here, Andy. It's not about this game for the Eagles. It's about getting much further than this.
Yeah, absolutely. That you mentioned the Giants, boy, and the Vikings are it's so tricky to figure this team out, right? Because they made that big comeback, but they just seem like a good regular season team. But what does it mean? But we're still in the regular season. The Giants have been gamers, but we've seen them start to steadily decline as the year goes on. But if I'm looking plus 185, I think the Vikings will win the game. But boy, the Giants are good enough, and the quarterbacks that have thrown for 300 plus yards over Minnesota's defense in recent weeks are not, world beaters here. You got like Mike White doing stuff and some guys in the average or below average. Daniel Jones can run. He can throw a bit too. And I don't know, plus 185 the Giants.
I wouldn't blame you there. Matty Ice also had a good game against him, and he's just been off all year. I don't trust the Vikings. I don't trust the Giants either. So
No.
It's a tough call. But the Giants are overachieving, that's for sure. Minnesota got off to a good start, and besides last week's game where that sensational comeback and being 11-3, they just don't look like an 11-3 team. So. That just goes to show you they're only a 4.5-point favorite over the Giants. They're at home. Giants are 8-5, and they're 11-3, and they're only 4.5, which is a little bit more than on a neutral field. They might be a 1.5-point favorite, 2 over the Giants at the most. So it's just showing that those teams are kind of equal on the power ratings, close to it anyway.
In conversation with Johnny Avello, DraftKings Sportsbook Director out of Las Vegas. Okay, Johnny, let's start talking MVPs. And we kind of dip in and out of that conversation as the year goes on. Looks like Joe Burrow may be gaining some steam. He has to have a hot finish. But what are your thoughts on the current MVP odds around the NFL? And who do you like?
Well, Hurts was a big favorite. Now, when I say big, he went to minus 170 or so about 3 days ago. But when the news broke that he wasn't going to play, he went to plus $5, $5.50. And the reason that is you can't miss a game now. Down the wire here, you cannot miss a game because those other guys are all playing and their stats are going to be elevated because you're missing a game, they're not. When you look at the guys that are left in the mix, and you look at this week's games. So Hurts is out. We know that. You got Joe Burrow in the mix, like you said. You got Allen in the mix, like you said. Those guys both have tough games this week in cold weather situations. The Chiefs with Mahomes are at home and a big favorite, 10 points. It looks like Mahomes should have a big day. So that's why Mahomes is about a $3 favorite right now, because it looks like he'll have a big day and maybe pull ahead of these guys with only 2 weeks to go.
That's a good point. And all comes back again to that weather conversation. So Mahomes there, but and Bengals too. Yeah, you're playing the Patriots. That defense is always tough. That's difficult. So
yes.
No, that's just quick side. What did you think of that finish with Patriots Raiders? Have you ever seen anything more ridiculous last week? Belichick, oh my gosh. You just know he was just like, I'm going to destroy something. That must have just killed him.
It was very uncharacteristic for a Belichick coach team. Now, what happened to the player, and I think, this is probably thought through by a lot of people, is he thought that was the end of the game. Mm-hmm. He forgot that there was a whole overtime period yet to be played. So during the play, he gets the ball, he rushes for about 15, he's going out of bounds, and all of a sudden he thinks, well, I got to keep this game going or we're going to lose. That came to his mind. So he lost his train of thought. Unfortunately, it looked bad.
Yeah, just hilarious from a viewer standpoint, horrifying from the player and coaching standpoint. Johnny, look, great stuff, man. Tell people, again, where they can DraftKings is all over the place, so it's not hard to find there. But people can bet pretty much everywhere now or soon to be, right?
Well, yeah, we're adding Ohio on January 1st.
Yeah.
Massachusetts should be on board sometime in the early spring. We're adding new states, and we're easy to find. Even if you're in a state that doesn't have legalized sports betting, you can play our free pools anyway. They're free to anybody around the country because they're free. We put up the money and you play and try to win it. And we do everything in there besides sports. We do a lot of entertainment odds, Housewives, Survivor, weather, all kinds of things. So that's a way to get engaged with DraftKings if you've never been on the platform before.
Yeah, those pools are a lot of fun. I like that. Johnny, happy holidays, sir. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, there he is, Johnny Avello from Las Vegas, Nevada. director of the DraftKings Sportsbook. Okay, for the Thursday night, I want to get to my perfect DraftKings DFS contest slate. My perfect lineup. If it's perfect, I'll win like $1 million. So, but this is my perfect lineup. So the DraftKings contest, what you do for the individual games called a showdown contest. So you still have your $50,000 salary cap, but you have a captain spot. What that means is you get 1.5 times the fantasy points, but it costs you 1.5 times the player's salary. For me, I'm putting in Zay Jones. And I've been telling you for a month, people, a month to pick up Zay Jones, put him in your fantasy football playoff lineup. If you listen, like me, I got Zay Jones in one of my lineups. He almost single-handedly catapulted me into the semifinals of one of my leagues. 31 plus fantasy points. I'm not saying he's getting 3 touchdowns every week, of course. But the guy's been steady. He's been the go-to. The target share is double digits to a man. It's phenomenal. Against New York, again, the weather, it'll be cold, but you have to watch the wind. Maybe that decreases a little bit if it's not too windy. You might be okay. I have Zay Jones in my captain spot, 12,300 pricey. Now I go to Michael Carter. And the reason I go to Michael Carter over Zonovan Knight popped up on the injury report, and he's going to be a game-time decision. Ankle. For a running back, as we know, that's not good to have a bum ankle. He might be limited. Keep an eye on as well. Is James Robinson activated? If he is, that really kills Zonovan Knight. Robinson, coach's decision, inactive. We're staying away from him, but Michael Carter should be the biggest beneficiary there. I got him in there at 6,400. Travis Etienne, stud. He's averaging 12.7 fantasy points a game this year. But overall, in the past few weeks, let's see. Yeah, you got 16.7 last week. Went a little cold, then popped back up. Etienne, again, if it does get cold, that's a guy you want in the lineup. He's getting the starter share. You want to know who's getting the starter share? Who's getting the majority? Who's going to get the opportunity? What do I always say, people? Opportunity equals success in fantasy football. Travis Etienne, get in there. I have the Jags defense. And you got Zach Wilson in there. Zach Wilson sucks. Sorry. Guy's not good. Last 2 games, back-to-back games, 12 fantasy point days for the Jaguars defense. Not against scrubs either. Dallas and Tennessee. You could be getting some double digits. That's going to cost you $3,800. Then I go to Trevor Lawrence, 11,400. Has the toe, has the Q. Don't be concerned. Trevor Lawrence has been absolutely balling out 21 or more fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. Trevor Lawrence, you got to get into the lineup. And then to mix it up at the end for $4,000, I got Riley Patterson, the Jaguars kicker. Put him in there because otherwise you're getting a backup guy. Patterson's going to kick as long as the wind isn't too bad. Shouldn't be too bad. He's got 11 fantasy points, 13 in his past 2 games. Good enough, right? Accurate. Doing it. And if I can get myself 8 to 12 fantasy points from a kicker, that's probably better than I'm getting from a 4th option wide receiver or running back, right? Or backup running back. So that's my perfect lineup. Captain, Zay Jones, then Michael Carter, Travis Etienne, Jaguars defense, Trevor Lawrence, and Riley Patterson, the kicker. Let me know yours on Twitter at AndyMC81. Remember, people, you can win some Domino's pizza, right? Win that Domino's pizza. All you do, retweet my Domino's tweet, use it, and then use hashtag AskAndy at AndyMC81. Okay? And you retweet that tweet and give me, the Andy Claus is giving away your Domino's pizza. Okay? Give me your Christmas gift, your fantasy football present from a player result. I read Isaiah McKenzie earlier from Nicholas. At Gary Block 11 says, when your playoff opponent's starting QB is hurt and he has to go to the waiver wire to find a replacement, he said Gary said that is his fantasy football present. Yeah, that sure is, man. That's tough. The order I would say to go into, check if Derek Carr is available. He's gotten you 17 or more fantasy points, 5 of his last 6. See if he's there. Was available in about 40-ish%, 45%, maybe a bit less in most leagues. After that, Trevor Lawrence was still available in 25% of leagues. See, check. Maybe he's not there. Then I'd go Gardner Minshew. Then I would go Brock Purdy banged up. Okay, that's sort of the list of the order. Otherwise, kids, it's gonna be, you're not replacing Jalen Hurts. You're just not, right? It's not gonna be great. So there you go. Let me know your Thursday night football fantasy line. Let me know if you have any other fantasy football questions. Like I said, on Twitter at AndyMC81. Follow up Firedup Net as well. On Instagram at AndyMCSports. Make sure you share the link to the show. Retweet the tweet and send me your fantasy football present. Win some Domino's pizza. Let's have some fun. Thanks to Johnny Avello. Thanks to producer Joe. I'm Andy McNamara. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Football tonight. Football this weekend. Stay warm, everybody. I'm Andy McNamara. We will see you